RedShift here, doing my part to shift perceptions out of the pink and into the red. Okay, so I got a really good comment by OldMan FlappyNuts, and so I wanted to read it, and then I wanted to respond to it. I think that's probably going to be most of what I say in this video, if not all of it. Okay, so OldMan FlappyNuts' comment said, quote, "If you find a well-rounded woman, I think she would be less likely to accept the consensual contract of spanking. I suggest it would be because the majority of their fathers have imprinted them with an idea of a more realistically ideal model of a male that does not reflect the modern MGTOW, but follows more on the stoic mentality and mental rigor of how idealistically traditional fathers are, and also that most women may strongly think they do not need it, and in turn, doing so, you apply more force to her, but then just end up damaging the relationship and even your life. I'm sure the government wouldn't even give a shit if it was consensual. Since spanking may reflect badly in her mind and cause mental dissonance of how a man should not be, being the fact that you're spanking her in the sense that having man dominate her with physical force, the husband or boyfriend, being more mentally strong may be much less welcomed for the MGTOW man, and could damage any potential of a strong relationship. What I'm trying to get across is the question of whether it is a smart move to spank when a woman is hard set on traditional values and has a very strong will for what she thinks is right and wrong. And another thing on this, wouldn't women that have been brainwashed be even more interested in getting physical pain within relationships because they more truly desire to be disciplined rather than a strongly willed, traditionally raised woman? Or should we chalk this up to saying that spanking is likely not always to be resorted to? I find that if you're going to discipline a woman, you do not tell her, but rather you just do it. Women, whether they want to admit to it or not, don't like having any control over a man. So he's saying like they won't admit it, but they don't like having control. They like it when the man is in control, right? Telling them what you're going to do, spanking them that is, just removes much of the shock factor and lowers her attraction to you versus in comparison to how much she would have been attracted to you if you had not told her in the first place. I understand this is risky, but on with the rest of the comment. Though I suppose this could spell dangerous on either both the brainwashed women that have skewed views and traditionalist women, which may be more willing to report you due to her strong-willed nature and her father not teaching her explicitly that physical pain, when used at moments of necessity, is in fact optimal and should be used as a tool of the man that they eventually may be with. This would be ideal, but likely an incredibly rare parental teaching method. Where do we draw the line? Seems like being vigilant and watching every pursuit and diversion, like making a mental note close to being a psyche profile, a profile of her, her mind and heart and stuff. Watching every pursuit and aversion of a woman is the only way to determine whether it be wise with any kind of accuracy that physical pain is not only suitable but necessary to making an even better woman. I understand there are holes in my points, e.g. that modern women lose their pair bonding ability at younger and younger ages. Therefore, it could be either practical or impractical to find at least an agnostic woman that is not totally closed-minded, but due to her ignorance, but openness of mind compared to an average modern woman, in the sense you can train her with providing truth to her eyes, and in turn raising your SMV for showing her something that no one else cares to teach, e.g. gold, silver, dangers of government, lies, etc., and in turn is a display of compassion, therefore bonding more effectively. I would put more info in this discussion, but this comment is already way too long. Cheers." Unquote. Okay, so that was the whole comment. It was a long comment, but definitely not too long, because he had a lot to say, and I think he made a lot of good points, and that's why I'm doing a video on his comment, right? So feel free to do a super long comment like that if it's going to be this excellent of a comment, any of you out there. So yeah, I agree that a good woman would be much less in need of being spanked, right? But it's like that. It's like that video clip that some MGTOW men have put on their channels, where it's that interview with, I don't know whether it's Barbara Walters or somebody did an interview with Sean Connery, right? And one time he said that he absolutely supports slapping women. If I remember correctly, that's what it was, right? And then she acted like that was so, she didn't act as shocked as like anybody would today, right? But she was basically kind of like, really? Like, don't you think that's a little like too much or whatever? I can't remember what she said, but she was objecting a little bit, and then, or don't you think that's chauvinist or something? And then maybe I think she or somebody else did an interview with him like a few years later or something, at some later point, and then they said, you said that like you think it's okay to slap a woman, right, if she deserves it or whatever, right? Do you still think that? And he said, absolutely. and then the woman, the interviewer, asked him, have you ever slapped your wife? And he said, no. He said, I don't need to slap my wife. Like, my wife isn't the kind of woman who, like, puts me in that position where I have to go that far, So this is my thoughts. Like, if it's a good woman, you won't have to spank her very often anyway, right? And it's like, there are other methods of holding women under control, right? Like, you can, you can stop giving her money to buy the groceries and then stop buying, the dessert that she likes, no more ice cream, just dinner. And then you can, like, stop having sex with her. You can do all kinds of things, right, to punish her in, like, a less severe way, or whatever. Like, I mean, certain punishments would perhaps you'd have to put them in a hierarchy, right? Like, this is the first punishment. If that doesn't work, then I do this other punishment. If that doesn't work, then I do this punishment. And then if even that doesn't work, then I have to go to whatever extreme is the most, right? So I'm not saying that, like, spanking would be the last option or the first option or in the middle. I mean, it probably depends, and it probably depends how much you spank her, where on that hierarchy it would fall. But yeah, like, a good woman would not require you to spank her, or would not require you to spank her very often, right? And the more you spank her, the more she's going to behave, and because she doesn't like it, because you spank her enough to where it really, really hurts, and she hates it, and she doesn't ever want it to happen again. So then she reforms her behavior, and now she doesn't do that thing again, so you don't have to spank her for that reason. So that's one less reason to spank her, right? And then some other thing that she's doing that's bad, and then you tell her no or whatever, and then she keeps doing it, and then you spank her for it, and then she stops doing it because she doesn't want to be spanked again. And now that's the second thing. It's like, as time goes by, there's going to be fewer and fewer things that she's going to do that are going to require spanking. So eventually, she's not going to need to be spanked at all, right? But yes, he's absolutely right. Like, the traditionalist woman is going to be much less likely, perhaps, to even want to be spanked because she's already mentally and morally disciplined. So she already thinks she's doing the right thing. So if you are too harsh on her or whatever, she might really take offense to that or whatever, right? But just because she is, like, set on being, like, a moral person, she thinks of herself as traditionalist, and she thinks of herself as a moral person. She tries to be a disciplined person, working hard all the time, raising the kids the right way, and stuff like this. That doesn't necessarily mean that she's not rebellious or willful, right? And I guess this comes down to a difference in personality too, right? Because some women are just rebellious not because they're born rebellious, like the Gone with the Wind, right? Like, Scarlett is this, like, fiery, rebellious woman, right? Like, that's just how she is. That's her genetics, right? Because she grew up in that, the character grew up in that time, right? But she was still a firebrand, still rebellious, right? But her cousin or her sister or whoever it was the absolute opposite. She was like a Naywald, right? Very submissive, very kind, played by Olivia de Havilland, if you remember correctly, who was also in Robin Hood with Errol Flynn. That was a great movie also. But anyway, yeah, so it depends whether this woman of today, this traditionalist, disciplined, moral woman of today, is somewhat rebellious because, or stubborn or whatever, because it's genetic, or because that's just part of, like, even the so-called good women of today, the really moral, traditionalist, Christian women, even these women are somewhat corrupted by modern culture. They don't realize it, but they are. Right, the influence seeps in because, they've been watching TV and they've had friends, and their friends are, influenced by feminism, even if they're not feminists. And all the guys, believe it or not, everybody, even MGTOW men, are influenced by feminism. Absolutely. So, like, it's this miasma. It's like the ground we walk on. It's like the poison. It's like poisonous air, like smog. It's everywhere. The whole feminism influence. So even good women of today are influenced by feminism, right? So that rebelliousness that this good traditionalist, moral, hardworking woman has is perhaps not due to her genetics, but is due to her growing up in a country that's totally saturated, top, bottom, left, right, front, and back by feminism, right? So you want to stamp that out of her, right? So spanking would be a good way to do that. But you don't want to punish her by spanking if it's, like, just her character. If she's just that way, that's just her genetics, right? So you'd probably have to determine, like, whether it's her genetics that make her the way she is, stubborn, rebellious, whatever. The way that would, whether it's her genetics that would make her the kind of person who would not react well to being spanked, or whether it's the influence of culture. Because if it's the influence of culture, then you can stamp it out of her. And you can probably stamp it out of her fairly easily, right? But if it's her genetics, then it's not really going to reform her, and then you're just punishing her for no reason, right? but women are very malleable, so even those women, perhaps it would be good to spank, because then you're gonna make them as submissive as possible. Because just because a woman's like rebellious and firebrandy and headstrong and stuff like this doesn't mean, and willful, doesn't mean that you can't, doesn't mean that she's like all, it could be genetic, but that doesn't mean that she has to be that bad, right? You know what I mean? She could be like out of control rebellious, out of control willful, and her genetics may be making her willful and rebellious, but not that willful, not that rebellious, right? Like if that same woman had been born 200 years ago, she would still be rebellious and willful, but not anywhere near as bad as she is, right? So you, even those women, you can spank and like get them or punish them some other way, and get them down to as low of a rebelliousness level as their genetics allow, right? So that would be good. But yeah, he's absolutely right. I don't know if it would like damage the relationship, but like, yes, he's absolutely right. It is a rare thing for parents to teach their daughters, these days at least. It's a rare thing these days for parents to teach their daughters that, you know, you should expect to be spanked by your husband if you misbehave, and you shouldn't misbehave, and you should be submissive to your man. I mean, a lot of parents these days teach their daughters to be strong and independent. So they're not even teaching their daughters to be submissive, much less that if they act badly, their husband's going to spank them, right? So yeah, he's absolutely right about that when saying that's like a rare parental method, right? And then he says, let me kind of go through here. Says, yada, 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 imprinted in more realistic idea. Yeah, they don't have a good ideal model of a male in society or in their minds. Women don't. So when they marry, they don't have a good idea of what their husband should be like, right? I mean, they don't even know how to treat their own husband, because a lot of times parents don't get along, right? But even if their parents do get along, their father's not that much of a man, and so they don't even have a good example then, right? Even if it's an example of like treating each other respectfully, it's not a good example of like the man being in charge and the woman being submissive, you know? So it's really, everything is so screwed up, right? And he's absolutely right about government not giving a shit even if it was consensual. But I would say that as long as you don't coerce her into sex by spanking her, and you just spank her when she behaves badly, when you make clear rules, you say these are the rules, you lay it out, and you got to do it beforehand, because like you said, you know, you don't tell her when you're going to spank her. Yes, in a sense, like if you're already in a long-term relationship, or if you're in a relationship and it's been serious for a while or whatever, or a marriage, then yeah, like she breaks the rules. You don't have to be like, all right, walk with me into the bedroom, you're getting spanked. No, you could just like grab her by the hand and drag her in there and spank her, right? But that doesn't mean that she has no prior warning, because her prior warning is, you know, the list of behaviors that you write out in a contract or whatever and say, these are the behaviors that are unacceptable. If you do this, you will be getting spanked. So then that's her prior warning. You know, when she does something that she's not supposed to do, acts in a, you know, she swears at you, or she insults you, or she wastes a bunch of money, or she does something else, you know, she flirts with some other guy, she leaves, you know, without telling you where she's going, she drinks, gets drunk, or whatever it is that she does that is on the list of unacceptable behaviors, she does that she had her prior warning, right? So she should have known the second she did it that she was in danger of getting spanked if she got caught, right? So then you catch her at it, and then she gets spanked. She should know. You don't need to like tell her, you know, we're going to the bedroom to spank you, because she should already know, right? But you should tell her probably even before you get into the relationship, before you even start dating her. Like on the very first date, you say, you know, I believe in spanking, you know, women who act badly, right? And I'm going to hold you to moral rules, and I expect I will hold myself to moral rules, and you can call me on it when I'm not acting according to how I should be acting, right? But I'm also going to hold myself accountable. And, you know, I am here to serve you and our children if we have any. And, but in you know, serving you monetarily, you know, taking care of you and stuff, I get the authority, and you'll be more happy about that anyway. So, you know, if you're up for that, if you think you can follow the rules, you'll never get spanked, right? And then maybe you have the contract written out beforehand on the very first date. You show her the rules. All right, here's all the rules. You know, this is rational. I'm gonna abide by all these rules too. And if I don't abide by these rules, then we can think of a punishment for me or whatever, right? Like money or whatever else it is, because, you know, you don't spank men. I mean, that's just not done, right? But so yeah, you have this list, and you say, I'm going to abide by these rules too, pretty much, and unless the ones that are gender specific or whatever. But then you say, I'm going to abide by these rules, and if you are willing to also abide by these rules, you'll never get spanked, right? But if you don't abide by the rules, if you break the rules, then you will be spanked, right? And you'll tell her, it's not out of sadism, and I won't be angry at you before or after. It's just, you break the rules, this is the punishment. It happens, then it's over, right? That's how you should spank kids too, right? You don't spank them out of anger. You say, oh, misbehavior, and then you spank them, and then after that you're not angry at them anymore. And you shouldn't even be angry beforehand. You should keep your cool, and maybe you're angry, but you don't like spank them out of anger. You know what I mean? Like the physical force you're using on the kid when you're spanking them is not affected by your anger. You know what I mean? You're not spanking them harder because you're angry at them. You're spanking them the right amount of hardness that you think is appropriate to reform their behavior. Same thing with women, right? Like you don't spank them out of anger, and you don't spank them harder because you're angry. You just, even if you are angry, you spank them as calmly as you can, and you spank them as hard as they need to be spanked, and then after that, after it's over, then you let it go. Right? You're like, okay, that's the punishment. The punishment has been done. Just like serving a prison sentence for a crime, you've served your time. It's over, right? And hopefully you don't do it again, because if you do, it'll happen again. And if it keeps happening, then obviously you're not getting spanked or punished enough every time, because it's not disincentivizing you from doing it. So then we're going to have to spank you more, or use some other more effective punishment, or some other punishment in conjunction with spanking you to get you to stop doing it, if you just keep on doing it, because the punishment doesn't seem to be disincentivizing you from doing it, right? So then, so that's how you do that. And then you tell her this all in the very beginning of the relationship, right? And then she looks at the list of rules, and either she's like, these rules are crazy. This is the only date we're going on. Thanks a lot. I'm not going to date anybody who wants this, right? But like, a more reasonable woman with some wisdom, or maybe she's desperate or whatever, and she's like, okay, we'll try it. We'll see if I can follow these rules and how I feel about, like being spanked if I break these rules or whatever. So then you get into a relationship, and then, you enforce the rules fairly and calmly, and she sees that you're not a sadist, and she sees that you're not punishing her out of anger, but just to enforce the rules, right? And then she learns that, if she follows the rules, everything's great. And if she doesn't, she gets punished, and then everything's great again until she breaks the rules again, and then she gets punished again, right? So, yeah, you kind of tell her right up front in the beginning of the relationship that this is how it's going to work, right? Because it is going to cause problems if you're already in a relationship, and then you try to change the whole dynamic of the relationship, right? Because she's going to feel like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. Like, if you're already married, she's going to feel like, this is fucked up, right? I didn't agree to marry someone who spanks me, you know what I mean? Like, or if you've been in a long-term relationship, she's going to be like, I didn't sign up for this, basically. And maybe she'll break up with you. But if it reforms her behavior, and or it accesses some like deep primal thing in her that like makes her want to be submissive, that might feel very rewarding to her. I mean, it will in a lot of women's case, but a lot of women's cases it won't, because they're so brainwashed by feminism. But the women who it does access, they're able to appreciate that primal feeling of submission that it induces in them. They're going to be like, oh, I didn't think I would like this. I hated the idea, but now that it's happening, like, it makes me more accountable. I'm better behaved. I'm happier because I'm better behaved. I respect him more. And, I think about my actions before I do them. I don't just do whatever pops into my head. And it actually makes me feel more like a feminine woman when, I'm punished for my bad behavior in this particular way, being spanked, right? So then some of the relationships are going to be damaged by being spanked, right? Especially if you've already been in this relationship for a long time and all of a sudden you start spanking her. And other relationships are going to be made better by it, even though they've been together for a long time already and there was never any spanking before, right? So, and as far as like dissonance of how a man should be, the fact that you're spanking her, this falls into the whole same thing. It's like, what does she think of you, and whether she's views you better or worse because you're spanking her now. And I think that's mainly an ego thing, probably, because like if she has a huge ego, then she's going to be really offended that you're spanking her now, right? But if she has a small ego, or doesn't, for whatever reason, maybe she's just low sexual marketplace value, or maybe she's high sexual marketplace value, but was raised really, really well and has good genetics and is very moral and therefore very humble and small ego, right? Either way, for whatever reason, if she has a small ego, she's probably going to respond a lot better to being spanked, right? So what else did he say here? Yada, yada, yada. Heart set on nutritional values, very strong will. Wouldn't a woman who's been brainwashed be even more interested in getting physical pain within relationships because they truly desire to be disciplined rather than a strong-willed, traditionally raised woman? Yes, this is true, but it's like, she desires to be disciplined more because she's acting worse, right? And because she's never had enough discipline placed on her, right? Like a woman who grows up to be out of control, it's probably because she wasn't raised with enough discipline, right? So she's been craving discipline all her life. So yeah, she, the out of control feminist or whatever, wants to be disciplined more because she needs it, and she deep down thinks or realizes that she needs it, right? But this is not that she wants to be spanked more because she's a feminist or whatever. It's more like she's just more out of control, so she needs to be disciplined more, so therefore she wants to be disciplined more, right? A strongly willed, traditionally raised woman, she doesn't want to be spanked because she knows she doesn't deserve to be spanked, right? At least most of the time, right? But then that's where the whole rules thing comes in, right? Like, you're not going to spank the feminist out of control woman any less than she needs to be spanked, and you're not going to spank the traditionally raised woman any more than she needs to be spanked, right? So each one, no matter who you get into a relationship with, you only spank them as much as they need to be spanked, right? As much as they break the rules. However much or less they follow the rules, whether they're, a so-called traditionalist or whether they're a feminist, it doesn't matter. Like, if they follow the rules, they don't get spanked, and if they break the rules, they get spanked, and if they follow the rules, they don't get spanked, right? So that's kind of how that goes. And then he said, or should we just chalk it up to saying that spanking is likely not always to be resorted to? Well, yeah, I mean, you just spank them when they need to be spanked, right? Or you don't spank them when they don't need to be spanked. It's pretty simple, right? And that's what male authority is about, right? Like, male authority is not about, like, harming women or, like, being on a power trip or, being a sadist or resorting to, like, aggrandizing your own ego by, like, making her lower so as to make you higher in comparison. That's not what it's about. It's about who gets to set the rules in the relationship, because just like a company, you can only have one CEO. And if there's two CEOs, which is rare, then it's probably because they're doing different parts of the company. Like Google has two CEOs. They're probably running totally different parts of the company. So it's not like those two guys, even when they're both CEOs, it's not even like they're fighting over what to do in any particular area, because one guy's running one half of the company and one guy's running the other half of the company, right? So same thing, like, you can only have one CEO of the relationship. You can only have one person in charge, especially since women are not like another man who you can have a rational discussion with, right? They're irrational. They always exploit loopholes. They want their way, even if it's totally illogical. They want their cake and they want to have it. They want to have their cake and eat it too. You see, so you cannot have a relationship that's like a egalitarian, like both people come to a decision type of relationship with a creature like that. So, and plus, they don't even respect men who interact with them on that even plane. They only respect men who treat them in the way that they know they need to be treated. That is, he puts her in her place and he makes the decisions, right? So what I was saying is that the relationship is all about, like, the man making the rules, right? The man making the rules and the man making the decisions. So he makes the list of rules for the house that she has to follow, right? And for not just the house, for her and or for the kids, if they have kids eventually, like, he makes all the rules, right? And then it's up to her to enforce the rules on the kids and enforce the rules on herself. And if she doesn't, it's up to him to enforce the rules on her, right? He'd spank her or punish her however other means to punish her for breaking the rules that she knows that she broke, right? So this is how it is. So, where was I going with that? I was kind of, but basically, like, she needs to be forced to follow the rules because you can't do it any other way, right? Like, and if she doesn't see things your way, then either she can, get out of the relationship because she doesn't agree with your rules, or she can stay in the relationship and just, okay, I'm just going to be in this relationship, even though I don't agree with his rules, I'm going to follow him anyway, right? And that's what obedience is, right? It's not like women in being submissive are always obedient, right? Like, women are naturally submissive, but they're submissive to power, right? So you have to exercise power or else they won't obey, right? But even if you exercise power, you still have to punish them when they break the rules, because they are going to occasionally break the rules because they're shit testers. Not even in a emotional sense, but in a sense of, like, wanting to make sure that he is as masculine as she thought, and that, the rules are as hard as she thinks they are, right? Like, if you say these are the rules, but you don't enforce them evenly or you don't enforce them at all, then she's gonna be like, okay, he says those are the rules, but they're not really because, he doesn't enforce them. So I'm just going to do what I want. I'm going to totally disregard those rules. So she is constantly always trying to have, well, not constantly, but every once in a while, she'll always test each rule to make sure that that is still a solid rule. And if it is, then she'll follow it again. But if it's not, then she'll start breaking it on the regular. You see, that's how women are. So you have to set these rules, and then women are built to it's not like they're totally built to always obey, right? Like women are these rebellious, subversive creatures, right? But you have to force them to obey with power, right? And this is where physical force comes in, because they are very physical creatures, women are. Men are very intellectual. Men can live up in their head because men understand concepts, and men can live in a conceptual world in their head, which is why men are more logical and more smart and more less emotional, right? But women are more emotional, and emotions are connected with your body, right? So women are not only more emotional, they're also more connected with their body than men are. They live in their bodies, whereas men often live in their heads, right? At least intellectual men. And so this means that, physical punishment is a really, really good thing to use on a woman because they are so physical, right? And then he said, spanking is not always a resort to. I find if you're going to discipline a woman, you just do it. Yeah, I talked about that. Telling it removes the shock factor. Telling her you're going to do it removes the shock factor and lowers attraction to you. Yeah, but see, he's implying that like the spanking is about like making her more attracted to you, but it's not about that. It's about enforcing certain behavior. She will respect you more if you evenly enforce. Like if you spank her when she breaks the rules, but you only spank her when she breaks the rules sometimes. Other times she breaks the rules, you don't spank her. If that's the case, then it doesn't matter if you just grab her and drag her into the room without telling her and spank her. She's going to see that the rules are not that hard. Are not that solid, not that clear cut, not that evenly enforced, right? Not that regularly, solidly enforced. Like there's always going to be punishment if you break a rule. If you only punish her sometimes when she breaks the rules, then she's not going to be as attracted to you and stuff, right? So one of the ways that she can be more attracted to you is if you punish her regularly. Like every time she breaks a rule, you punish her. Instead of like, oh, you're breaking the rules, you're going to get punished, like bad parents do to their kids, right? They don't punish their kids every time their kids break a rule. They only threaten. And then only every once in a while they spank them. That's terrible parenting. Terrible, terrible parenting. And that would be a terrible way to treat your wife as well, right? To only spank her when she breaks the rules sometimes, right? Other times she breaks the rules and she gets away with it and you're just warning her or you don't even say anything, right? Then it's not going to be effective at all. And she's not going to respect you, and therefore she's not going to be attracted to you. And she's not going to respect you because you're not enforcing your own rules in an even-handed manner, in a regular way to where it can be reliably relied on that, she's going to get spanked if she breaks a rule. And if it's not reliable, then there's no reason she should follow it, right? So, but it's not about spanking her to make her more attracted to you. It's about spanking her to make sure her behavior is in line with the list of rules. And then when you make her behave according to the list of rules by regularly always spanking her or punishing her in some other way when she breaks the rules, then she's going to realize these rules are very hard, these are inviolable, I can't break any of these rules without getting punished in some way. Then she's going to respect the rules, then she's going to respect you for having made rules that you actually followed through on punishing her on, and that you're serious about, and then this will make her more attracted to you because she respects you, right? And he said, could spell dangerous on either both the brainwashed woman that have skewed views and traditionalist woman, which may be more willing to report you due to her strong-willed nature and her father not teaching explicitly that physical pain when used at moments of necessity is in fact optimal and should be used as a tool of the man they may eventually be with. Yeah, I guess, but if you go right up front and if you have her either agree or disagree to the whole contract and the spanking thing right up front when you first start dating her, then you're not going to have that problem of like, her reporting you when you spank her because she agreed right up front, right? So as long as you don't go like overboard, like, she has a sip of alcohol and you spank her 400 times, like that would be going way overboard, right? Like, so as long as you don't go overboard, you just spank her the right amount or you punish her other ways in the proper amount per, depending on which rule she broke and how badly she broke it, then as long as you're acting within reason like that, she's not going to report you. She's not going to call the cops when you spank her because she knew going in that she was going to be spanked if she broke the rules, right? So that's what I had to say about that. And then he said, it'd be good to watch her, be vigilant, watch every pursuit and aversion. Is the only way to determine whether it be wise with any kind of accuracy. That physical pain is not only suitable but necessary in making an even better woman. Yeah, vigilance is always good, right? And watching the way she is and what kind of woman she is and how you need to treat her. Definitely. It's it's an individual thing, right? Like whether she's a rebellious woman or a not rebellious woman, whether she was raised feminist or traditionalist, whether she was intentionally breaking the rule, or whether she just like accidentally broke the rule, or whether she broke it a little bit or a lot. Like those things all need to be taken into account when you're determining like how to punish her and how badly to punish her, right? So yeah, about that. That's what I had to say about that. And then he says, yada yada yada. Either practical or impractical to find at least an agnostic woman that's not totally closed-minded, but due to her ignorance, but openness of mind compared to an average modern woman. In the sense, you can train her by providing truth to her eyes, and in turn raising your SMV for showing her something no one else cares to teach: gold, silver, dangerous government lies, etc. In the display of compassion, therefore bonding more effectively. I agree with that too, right? Like you can start dating a girl and then you can like red pill her on things, right? Because that's actually the way a lot of women are, right? Like they will get into a relationship and they will be very open, right? Like, teach me this, teach me this, teach me this. They want you to teach them like all kinds of stuff, right? Like not all women, but a lot of women are like that, right? Like if you know how to play guitar, she'll be like, I want you to teach me how to play guitar. If you know a lot about a certain subject, she'll be like, well, what about this? And what about this? And you know, how does that make sense? Or how does this work? You know, she'll ask you all these questions, right? They're like little information sponges, women are, right? A lot of them are. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so those kind of women, absolutely, you can teach them about gold and silver and about how fiat currency is a hidden form of taxation, and about how gold and silver always go up over time, over the long term, you know, 20, 30 years. Over long term, gold and silver always go up with inflation, but actually even more than inflation because they get rarer and rarer. Therefore, they're not just increasing in dollar value because the dollar is going down in value, but they're also increasing in purchasing power. So they're actually going up even more than inflation, gold and silver are, especially gold. So you can teach her these kinds of things, and then she'll understand, and it'll make sense to her, you know, because it's logic, right? And you can explain to her the dangers of government. You could point her to YouTube channels like Really Graceful and Blonde in the Belly of the Beast and Lauren Southern and all these kind of or Ukrainian Lens, Christio Misty. You can point her to all these channels, and then she'll be like, oh wow, women are saying these kinds of things. This is crazy. Like, maybe, like, I was totally wrong all this time. This makes a lot of sense. Because, like, if you point her to a bunch of male YouTube channels to red pill her on stuff, she's going to be like, yeah, but that's, like, guys talking, like, what do they know about relationships? You know what I mean? She's going to think that. But, like, if you point her to a bunch of relationship and or, like, government conspiracy channels and stuff that are done by women, then she's going to be like, oh, wow, women think this conspiracy theory stuff is true and important. Maybe I should pay attention. I thought this was like only for crazy guys that were interested in this, right? And then you like point her to relationship channels like, you know, Christio Misty, anti-feminist channels like Christio Misty, and like relationship channels like Ukrainian Lens and stuff. And then she'll be like, oh wow, like women are saying this stuff too. Maybe my boyfriend is right about all this, right? And then she'll get really, really red pilled. And then yeah, that can be like a bonding experience, right? And then she'll be really like grateful and happy to you for having opened her eyes, right? I'm not saying that, like, that would necessarily make her be faithful to you or not hypergamous, especially if she wasn't a virgin when you met her. But if she was a virgin when you met her, then that will just make her bond even more with you. And then because she will already be unwilling to cheat because of you having taken her virginity, she will be even less willing to cheat because of this extra bonding, because of you opening her eyes about all this stuff, about relationships and sexual marketplace value and the importance of virginity and, you know, the dangers of government and the importance of saving in gold and silver and all this stuff, right? Then she'll appreciate you even more, right? And so, yeah, you can do that. But, you know, unfortunately, the women who are likely to be virgins when you meet them are religious women. And so she probably would not do well. She would not appreciate you trying to disabuse her of her religious belief in God, right? Like women are like men, but even more so in the whole believing in God thing in a way, because they tend to, like, need this kind of, like, belief to emotionally ground them, to make them happier and more stable and less fearful and all the rest of it, right? And plus, like, they feel like, where are they going to get their morals from if not from God, right? So, like, a lot of women who are agnostic or atheist are immoral, right? And a lot of religious women are moral because they have this belief that, okay, these are the values of the universe. These are what God said this is what God said is right and wrong, and this is the essence of God, and this is what I should therefore idealistically, you know, search after to become more like this, more loving, more patient, more kind, more generous, etc., right? So I think it would be pretty hard to find an agnostic or an atheist woman who is number one, a virgin, and number two, has a good moral character, and is open-minded enough, and is interested in you enough, and is not ugly, but not so good-looking and charming that she already has a way better boyfriend than you, right? Like, finding a woman like that would be really, really hard. But I guess if you did find one, an agnostic or an atheist woman who's a virgin and who's virtuous and who's of the right sexual marketplace value, that she would be willing to date you and you would be willing to date her. I mean, you know, she's not too high to where she wouldn't be willing to date you, and she's not too low that you would not be willing to date her. That is, she's not too ugly or stupid or whatever. If you could find a woman like that, then yeah, that'd be great, right? But I think that'd be pretty hard to find. So I said in the description box of my video the other day about how bad culture equals ease in finding a woman. I did sort of a clarification in the description box. I don't know how many people read it, but I said basically that, yeah, it's easier to find a good woman I think I wrote this in the description box. It's easier to find a good woman in a bad culture, but there's so few of them that it's harder to find such a woman. And even if you do find one, she probably already has a boyfriend, and he's probably already higher sexual marketplace value than you are, right? Like, a woman, pretty much, all she has to do is, number one, be born, let's say, a 6 out of 10 or above, or maybe a 6 or a 7 out of 10 or above, and have good moral character. That is it. That is pretty much it. That is all she has to do to be extremely high value, especially in a very, very corrupt society like the one we live in, right? So what I'm saying is like, it's easier to find these good women, but it's not easier to find a single woman who's like that, right? It's not easier to find one of these good women who's single and who would be willing to date you. Because she's a really good woman, she's very virtuous, she's a virgin, she's decent looking, she's like a 7 out of 10 or whatever, it's going to be very hard to convince her that you're the guy that she should date, because she's got tons of options, right? In a sense, it's actually not that bad, because it's not like every guy is awake to the importance of virginity, so it's not as if every guy would be going after her, right? Like, especially a lot of the men at the top of the socioeconomic pyramid, they like women who are charming and intelligent and good-looking, right? And when a woman is very good-looking and very charming and very intelligent, then she, especially if she comes from a rich family, which rich men also like, because then he knows the girl's not after him for his money because she's already rich, right? So his money doesn't impress her. Her father already has $100 million. She already has, apartments all over the world and stuff. So it doesn't matter not that it doesn't matter. It's just that, like, the guys like these girls, right? Like, who are very smart. They come from a rich family. They're very good looking. They're very charismatic, right? So, but because they're very rich and they're very intelligent and they're very charismatic and they're very good looking, these high level genetic women, they are often very corrupted by their power, like their beauty and their wealth and their intelligence and their charisma. Their charisma allows them to get their way. Their intelligence allows them to hang with, very smart men. Their wealth means they don't have to be accountable to anybody. They can get away with almost anything. And their good looks means, like, everybody's after them. So they have their pick of guys. Everybody wants to help them. You know what I mean? So, like, these women are very, very corrupted by the power that they have, these high-class women, right? So the guys who are rich and very, or even not rich, but like the top 1% of guys, the guys that are good-looking, high IQ, charismatic, healthy, successful, even though they may not be rich, maybe they make $300,000 a year, or $200,000 or $400,000 or whatever. They make a pretty good amount of money every year, right? So these guys, you wouldn't call them rich, but these kind of guys like these kind of women. So they're not looking for a 7 out of 10 virgin with a 105 IQ or a 100 IQ and a good moral character, right? Like, they're not looking for that kind of girl. Those rich, not necessarily rich, but top 1% guys, they're not looking for that kind of girl. So it's really not as bad as that. Like, it would be like every single man in society is looking for, a 7 out of 10 virgin, right? It's not that bad, but it is pretty bad in terms of difficulty in getting such a woman. But at least you don't have to contend with the top men, who not only like these women who are corrupt, but because they have high standards, and the women are corrupted because they have really good genetics and stuff, but they also have a taste for bad women, rich men do, because they're so used to screwing so many women that it's like women bore them, right? Like the woman, it's almost like evil women have more freedom because they can do whatever the hell they want, and they don't care about consequences. So it's like they're more entertaining, evil women are. I mean, long term, they're terrible for a relationship, like a marriage or something, but like in the short term, you know, for dating for a few months or something, they are way more entertaining than the woman who's going to make a good wife, right? So the top men, the top 1% men, all want those charismatic, you know, or even evil women who are charismatic and good looking and stuff, right? But like, let's say the bottom 80% of men, maybe even not even all of them, because a lot of them don't even realize the importance of virginity, right? But a fair amount of them, let's say a good 10, 20, 30% of that bottom 80% of men, they absolutely want a 7 out of 10 virgin with a 100 IQ and a really good moral character, right? That would be like ideal for them, those smart guys who are smart enough to know exactly what to look for, right? But, you know, the women in society who are like that are probably fucking, I don't know, way less than 5%, I would say. But probably even less than 1 or 2%, right? The amount of women in society that are like that is really low, right? Because like either she's not that good looking and that's why she's like a 4 or a 5 and that's why she's a virgin still at, you know, 19 or 20 or 18, or she's, you know, she does not have that great of a moral character even though she's a 7 out of 10 virgin. Although most of the women with bad moral character are bad moral character because they're all fucked up because of promiscuity. But, you know, I'd say, like, if it's like 20% of men who are looking for a 7 out of 10 virgin with a really good moral character and a 100 IQ, in other words, she doesn't have to be that smart, then it's still a major problem because, you know, there's like 1 or 2% of women who fit this criteria of 7 out of 10 or higher virgin with a 100 IQ who's got really good moral character, right? So you got 10 times as many men seeking this, you know, small percentage of women. So it's still quite hard, even though you can find such a woman. You can find her easily because she stands out, but you can't get her to date you very easily. And not because she's stuck up, but because there's just so many men going after that many women, so those women always have a boyfriend, right? Or a husband or whatever. Like they marry earlier, they marry at an earlier age, they're saving their virginity till marriage, and so they want to get married earlier, and they don't bounce from boyfriend to boyfriend, so either they don't date, and they're just waiting for their husband, a man who they'll be instantly sure that they want to marry, or, you know, they date, but it's usually long term, and maybe they hold out the whole time, so the guy's like already invested in her because he's not been having sex with her because she's holding out for marriage. So now he's really invested. He's been dating her for, you know, a year or 2 years or whatever, just waiting for her to give it up. And so now he's so invested, he doesn't want to give it up, right? He doesn't want to give up pursuing her, right? So he continues dating her for 2, 3, 4 years, and they still haven't had sex, right? So then she's taken off the market for that entire time, right? Even though no one's sleeping with her, not even her boyfriend, right? So she's still not available for you, right? So it is still a problem because while the good women are easy to find, they're not easy to get them to date you, right? So I wanted to say all that stuff, and I wanted to read this comment, and I want to kind of give my commentary on it because I thought a lot of the things that he said were correct and very insightful, but I also kind of want to give my commentary and say, you know, little things that I disagree with a little bit or my spin on it. How I think certain things that he said are perhaps not a problem or whatever. And that was pretty much all I had to say in this video. This has been RedShift. I hope you got something out of this video. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it. Hit the thumbs down button if you didn't. Peace trucks.